The notion of a universe inhabited by alien creatures can be found just about everywhere in American popular culture, especially in movies, books, and on television. But as far as the mainstream is concerned, the idea that life on other planets not only exists, but has at any time made its way to our planet is considered the stuff of science fiction. And those who differ with that conventional wisdom are subjected to ridicule, scorn, and in some cases, government scrutiny.
Just because we can travel from star to star doesn't mean another civilization who is potentially 10,000, if not 100,000 years older than us can't do it either. That's the height of human arrogance. Yet we are saying all of this is just nothing but fantasy.
Could mankind really have been visited by alien beings from other worlds? And might the truth have been kept secret for centuries? Roswell, New Mexico. Here in the flat, thirsty lands of the American Southwest lies a remote city of 50,000 residents. Once the home of America's largest strategic air command base, it has now become ground zero for UFOologists and believers in all things extraterrestrial. Thanks to an incident that happened on the evening of July 8th, 1947.
Following a major thunderstorm, Rancher Mac Brazel came across this really extensive area of debris, stuff he had never seen before. He brought it to the local sheriff's office. They both thought it might be military because in 1947, Roswell was home to Roswell Army Airfield, the home of the 509th Bomb Wing. The base sent Major Jess Marcel, the intelligence officer, and at that point, it basically became a military site as they gathered up every bit of debris they could find.
Early on, they issued an official sanctioned press release from Roswell Army Airfield saying, "We have captured a flying saucer." The next day, higher authorities said, no, wait, no, they were wrong. It was just a weather balloon.
Something clearly landed in 1947. I've personally spoken with the Jesse Marcel family, and they're absolutely convinced that what they saw was not of this earth. He knew what a weather balloon was. He knew that this wasn't a weather balloon.
They moved in with the military. They scraped up the whole area, and they have since tried to act like that nothing had happened.
National Enquirer took the story and ran with it, and that made it even more popular. And the moment that happens, you can start to count like the number of column inches devoted to a subject. And that's what generates a myth.
The Air Force added more twists to the Roswell mystery beginning in 1994, with a statement that what crashed at Roswell came from a top secret experiment called Project Mogul. 3 years later, the Air Force reported that the alleged alien bodies were in fact dummies attached to parachutes as part of a flight test.
Except that doesn't make any sense either, because if you're going to test ejection seats or cockpits or parachutes or whatever, you're going to use a human-sized dummy, right? You're not going to use a 4-foot-high, big-headed, alien-looking creature. So the whole thing is it's just almost laughable.
The Air Force's conflicting reports about what was recovered at Roswell ignited the flames of a conspiracy theory that continues to this day. But why the changing stories? What was, or is, the government hiding?
I think the truth is that something very unusual happened at Roswell. Now, how many aliens there were and what kind of ship it was and where it came from, we don't know because they've covered it up. They've hidden it away.
They might think we can't handle the truth. They may think that they can't control us. There could be all kinds of causes and reasons for the suppression. Maybe they were told not to tell us. And so one of the reasons could very well be why government does not tell us, why they keep this in this book of secrets, is simply to protect us from panicking.
If there is evidence, allegedly the government would want to keep that secret, hide it in a warehouse out in the desert someplace.
The key motives for keeping the UFO extraterrestrial issue secret falls into, I think, two broad categories. Number one, weaponry. They view any exotic technology as possible weapons, and therefore it's got to be kept secret. And number two, any advanced technology could shake up the monopolies that the ruling elite enjoy in this country, and so they've got to keep that secret.
But where is the proof that the government hid advanced technology found at Roswell?
I think a tip-off to the fact that we got hold of ET technology at the Roswell crash is simply for the fact that up until about 1947, 48, 49, technological advancement was one of slow evolution. But after about 1950, you saw a literal explosion of technology. Fiber optics, night vision, computerization. Where did all that come from? I think we were picking up technology from some other outside source.
Might the U.S. government's advanced weapons technologies been the result of access to extraterrestrial intelligence? According to authorities, such theories are absurd. The lunatic notions of a conspiracy-hungry public.
In many ways, the mainstream completely marginalizes the idea of extraterrestrials coming here. They give it no credibility at all. And yet, what is so strange about the idea that extraterrestrials should come here? We know we're probably not alone in the universe, and we ourselves are trying to go to other planets. Why wouldn't they come here?
For those who adhere to the audacious notion that planet Earth is no stranger to alien visitation, evidence can be found in historical events from the ancient past. And for some, the proof is right before our eyes. Coming up.
That's one small step for man.
Neil Armstrong allegedly saw a UFO lifting up out of a crater on the moon.
Armstrong said, wow, look at these babies, they're huge.
Contact light. Okay, engine stop. We copy you down, Eagle. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
On July 20th, 1969, in what was arguably mankind's greatest technical achievement, Apollo 11 astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans in history to step foot on the moon.
That's one small step for man. One giant leap for mankind.
More than 125 million people watched the event live on their television screens. But then, for a period of 2 nail-biting minutes, the transmission suddenly went dead. The official reason was technical difficulties. But there are many who believe those 2 minutes were recorded, but censored, due to the strange things the astronauts were reporting back to NASA.
Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin actually saw things taking place on the dark side of the moon, and they were told they were not allowed to go there. And these were not Earth-based technologies.
Neil Armstrong allegedly saw a UFO lifting up out of a crater on the moon.
Armstrong said, wow, look at these babies, they're huge. And that they were ships up there watching them.
UFOs on the moon? Witnessed by astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin? A delusional conspiracy theory? Or a government cover-up? 2 facts are certain. The world watched as beings from one world landed on another. And a book, published just 1 year earlier, was now flying off store shelves. Written by Swiss author Erich von Däniken, Chariots of the Gods made a compelling case for the notion that many of the world's ancient archaeological mysteries had otherworldly origins.
The whole idea is extraterrestrials have been coming to Earth for thousands of years.
The best case worldwide is Nazca. I was one of the first who was in Nazca. Nazca is in Peru, about 500 kilometers from Lima. When you fly over the desert, you see gigantic lines. They look like airstrips. Seen from the air, they give you the imagination of airstrips. They look like, because they start abruptly, end abruptly.
Von Däniken's book also reported findings in the western United States of cave paintings of gods resembling strange creatures from another world. And other ancient images could be found in Italy that bore a striking resemblance to astronauts in spacesuits.
We have worldwide similar cave paintings. The so-called gods are always the one with the helmets and their halos. Now, if something happened just on one continent, let's say the Africans would do this, I would be quiet. But I clearly can prove that these so-called gods with the helmets and the halos you find worldwide, thousands of years ago, where our forefathers had no connection to each other. So why this? Because they saw the same thing.
Within a year of Neil Armstrong's first walk on the moon, Chariots of the Gods had sold 60 million copies and had been printed in 32 languages. It ignited belief in what has since become known as the ancient astronaut theory. But it also sparked controversy, even derision, from archaeologists, religious scholars, academics, and even the mainstream media.
Chariots of the Gods was on the market in the German-speaking world in February 1968. About 1.5 months later, it was on top of every best-selling list. And it took about maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Then the critics began.
It was outrageous. It collected a bunch of things and put them together in a way that was completely outlandish, yet so compelling that people wanted to believe it. And people want to believe that aliens visited Earth in the past and that they helped us with the pyramids and with the Nazca lines and that ancient aliens gave us technology. But the reality is, there is no robust evidence that aliens have ever visited Earth.
The theory incorporates a whole bunch of different hypotheses and facts and evidence all converging to a particular conclusion. In this case, that we were visited by aliens in ancient times, and the fact is we weren't. There's no evidence for this at all.
If there were an American book of secrets about extraterrestrials, it would say there that the only species able to colonize our universe is us.
9 months after his book's release, Erich von Däniken was arrested for fraud, embezzlement, and forgery in connection with loans he had secured to finance his research. A coincidence or a punishment intended to discredit and even silence his increasingly popular theory?
There's a natural suppression of this idea that extraterrestrials are here. And even if there is overwhelming evidence for it, Even the governments are going to want to keep a lid on this.
The ancient alien theory has been looked down upon by academia for a very long time. And that's okay, because we have to understand that science always has this status quo. And it's the status quo that needs to be maintained.
40 years later, the questions are still out there, and some are still being posed. And science is still coming up with no answers, because for 40 years, they have been unwilling to address it.
The possible conspiracy would be there is such power in these ideas, revolutionary, world-changing, social upheaval could follow if, in fact, these all came out.
Could there really be a global cover-up of ancient alien activity? One that shields the public from a profound knowledge that, if revealed, could shatter the very fabric of our civilization? Even distinguished NASA astronaut Edgar Mitchell, the lunar module pilot for Apollo 14 and the sixth man to walk on the moon, says the answer is yes.
I think that the evidence of ETs and aliens being here, which I'm convinced they have been, are sufficient evidence in itself that they come from some other place.
What we're going to find is not only that we are not alone, but also that our entire history needs to be reanalyzed. Everything what we know about the past all of a sudden has to become inclusive of visitors from elsewhere.
Coming up.
The President of the United States cannot even get to this information.
We spent some time looking at this, but there was nothing conclusive.
There's that very high likelihood that the secret is here and we don't know about it.
In 1974, Sun Classic Pictures, an independent production company specializing in family-friendly documentaries, released a feature film version of Chariots of the Gods to theaters across the United States, grossing nearly $26 million. It helped fuel the flames of a growing interest in the ancient astronaut theory.
When Chariots came out, I was in college, and I remember it was a big pop culture thing. I mean, it was a huge story, and I thought this would be fantastic if there was something to this.
For the first time ever, the idea that extraterrestrials might have visited Earth in the remote past was being popularized. You have to understand that in the 70s, the country was in upheaval, people were unsatisfied with what was going on in politics and all this. Very reminiscent of what is happening today, by the way.
The willingness on the part of the American public to embrace many of the film's audacious claims was due in no small part to a growing cynicism and anti-establishment attitude. One that took root in the era of Vietnam War protests and the Watergate scandal, particularly with the generation known as baby boomers. Now, everything was being questioned, especially organized religion and even the existence of God.
The slow erosion of mainstream religion and the rise of New Age spiritualities and that sort of thing, the alien hypothesis became much more popular. There was more of a receptive audience for it, that there are beings out there coming down here, which then finally also has religious overtones.
Von Däniken takes a very stimulating theological stance. He has an explanation for the gods that both questions and challenges traditional explanations of what gods are or what God is.
Chariots of the Gods was quite timely because we ourselves just became extraterrestrials on the moon. Space exploration at the time was huge.
Even more evidence of the ancient astronaut theory's growing attractiveness could be found in popular culture. Primarily in films like Star Wars, which places its high-tech world of robots and lightsabers not in the far future, but a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. Similarly popular was Battlestar Galactica, a fantasy adventure television series which told the story of a doomed humanoid race in search of a home planet. Its use of Egyptian-style spacesuits and other ancient iconography seemed to validate von Daniken's notion that the people who built the pyramids may, in fact, have come to Earth from other worlds.
The idea of there being extraterrestrials out there, this is called the plurality of worlds debate. It's been around since the ancient Greeks. So it's just a small extension to go from they're out there to they've come here.
But there were those for whom the idea of extraterrestrial beings traveling to Earth and influencing its history represented not a far-fetched theory, but the lowest and most dangerous form of pseudoscience. They called ancient astronaut theory everything from racist and colonialist to downright nonsense. And these were members not only of the religious and scientific communities, but of the presumably more open-minded world of academia.
When Chariots of the Gods came out, it created a revolution because people either loved it or hated it. Mostly the ones who hated it were the academics, because they somehow felt that this notion that we had been visited by extraterrestrial beings was simply impossible. Eric von Daniken had to be wrong. And what they were confronted with was the fact that these questions couldn't be answered by science. Science was basically saying that there was no validity whatsoever.
Chariots of the Gods actually really did have an effect on me, because when I see what I call outright bad science, it really gets my hackles up. And when I listened and read about and saw different shows on these different hypotheses, it often ended up sort of screaming matches at the television screen about, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
I don't think that Earth has ever been visited by any extraterrestrials. I find it striking how we humans have again and again underestimated the technological capabilities of ancient peoples. We tend to be a little bit arrogant and say, those loser Egyptians and Greeks, you know, what do they know?
Is ancient astronaut theory really as anti-scientific or preposterous as its detractors believe it is? Or could there be another, perhaps more secret reason for the mainstream resistance to the idea that alien visitors have been coming to Earth for centuries?
Having a new idea of religion, a new revelation of sorts, is going to challenge any established belief system and the institutions that support that belief system. That established economic interest would be concerned about the technology, the advances, that it could disrupt markets, could disrupt their own financial interests.
But there is one branch of the government that is reportedly very open to the idea of extraterrestrials in our midst. The presidency. In his first days in office, President Bill Clinton is said to have asked two questions. Who really killed President Kennedy? And what is hidden at Area 51?
If the United States Air Force did recover alien bodies, they didn't tell me about it either, and I want to know.
The administration of President George H.W. Bush also made a secret investigation into the possibility of alien visitors on planet Earth.
The alien situation is very interesting. We literally spent some time looking at this, but there was nothing conclusive that came of it.
Nothing conclusive? Can it really be that the nation's highest office cannot confirm or deny that alien visitors on Earth do not exist? Or Is it possible that the truth about UFOs and alien astronauts is being kept hidden, even from the president?
I think most presidents have tried to find out what's going on, and I don't think they get through the door. I don't think they're told. But there's that very high likelihood that the secret is here, and we don't know about it.
Various people in the Obama administration have expressed a deep interest in UFOs. But in all cases, what we hear is that somehow the UFO secret is not something which is to be shared to the president.
So that means the President of the United States cannot even get to this information, which I think should raise the question in everyone's mind, well, who does get to this information? And who exactly are they to keep it from everyone, including the president?
The relationship between the President of the United States and other worldly beings stretches back to the very founding of the country. From its earliest days, the U.S. government has been associated with signs, symbols, and allusions to cosmic contact.
The founding fathers of America were very open-minded and forward-thinking people. Thomas Jefferson reported seeing a UFO. Benjamin Franklin wrote that he believed in life on other planets. Even George Washington had a portrait made of himself that has a UFO in the sky. So you have this idea of the founding fathers even possibly being influenced themselves by extraterrestrials.
But why, if the nation's highest office remains curious about the possibility of alien visitors, is the notion so scoffed at by those in the scientific community? Is there a cover-up? Or do they think mankind is not yet ready to handle the truth? Perhaps the answer lies in the Book of Secrets. Coming up.
Suddenly, the Vatican is saying, yes, there's other life on other planets. We're going to be looking for it, too.
What's the stake for organized religion? Power and control.
On May 13th, 2008, the L'Osservatore Romano, the semi-official newspaper of the Catholic Church in Rome, published an interview with Reverend José Gabriel Funes, the Jesuit priest who served as director of the Vatican's observatory at Castel Gandolfo near Rome. Bearing the headline, "The Extraterrestrial is My Brother," Funes made a remarkable and audacious admission that there is no conflict between believing in God and the possibility of intelligent life on other planets. In one swift move, the Roman Catholic Church had contradicted centuries of its own teachings.
This would really break the mold of our current understandings of religion and understand that a lot of the things we thought were mythology were actually fact.
Why the change in attitude? Did the Catholic Church discover evidence of life on other planets? Or might it be the time was right for the Church to admit something it had known to be true all along?
The Vatican has some of the most advanced telescopes in the world. They have some of the most advanced radio telescopes and transmission and communication equipment in the world. I think they know the same things our military-industrial complex knows, which is this is all very real, and that eventually it's going to come out.
I think the reason why the Vatican came forward and endorsed the idea of searching for extraterrestrial life is because the Vatican wants to be ahead of the curve.
The Vatican Observatory's announcement also included plans to explore the outer planets and their systems, with a particular concentration on Saturn's moons Titan and Enceladus.
They said that they would be involved with the search for extraterrestrial life. So suddenly, the Vatican is saying, yes, there's other life on other planets. We're going to be looking for it too.
Could Saturn's moons really hold the key to the extraterrestrial origins of life on our planet? And is the Vatican really admitting that the Earth's ancient religions might in fact have extraterrestrial origins? Even believers in ancient astronaut theory remain skeptical.
The idea that the source of ancient religions might actually be interaction with extraterrestrials is not an idea that organized religion wants to promote.
What's the stake for organized religion? Power and control. It's that simple.
There are many in the ancient astronaut community, however, who claim that many of the beliefs and teachings that comprise the world's religions serve not to contradict the possibility of alien life, but to confirm it.
One of the biggest points of reference for the ancient alien theory are the sacred books, sacred texts that we can find all around the world. And those sacred texts, in many cases, describe people from the stars descending in some type of flying machines.
The Vatican's bold admission that the possibility of intelligent life in the universe seemed to validate what scientists and cosmologists like Stephen Hawking had believed for centuries. But it also gave fresh credibility to another, perhaps even more controversial theory, that of intelligent design.
Intelligent design is a theory having been promoted now for about 2 decades that says evolutionary development is not strictly a matter of chance, that actually higher organisms are designed by an intelligent designer. They're not simply accidents of biological contingency.
Of course, the notion that the universe and all living things are more likely the product of a godlike being or entity was not new. Virtually every religion across the globe has embraced the concept for centuries. But intelligent design was now being championed by powerful political and religious conservatives, people like Republican Party activist George Gilder, whose Discovery Institute in Washington, D.C. stands at the forefront of what detractors would call this subversive and pseudoscientific concept. It was seen by the mainstream as an attack on the theory of evolution, and therefore threatened the integrity of modern scientific thought.
Those disciples of Charles Darwin who advance evolutionary theory, and today we call it the neo-Darwinian synthesis because genetics explains variation, it's important to note these are chance events that lead to the development of new species. Intelligent design people want to say it's not just chance, it's the intervention of an intelligent designer. Who is that intelligent designer? Well, St. Thomas Aquinas would say, we all call that designer God. But intelligent design people say, we have no opinion on who the designer is.
Do proponents of intelligent design really have a secret agenda to undermine conventional science by promoting the belief in an almighty creator? Or is it an ingenious means of bridging the enormous gap that exists between those who believe in Charles Darwin's secular theory of evolution and those who believe that mankind might also owe its very existence to beings from other worlds? Perhaps the ultimate answer can be found in the covert messages that are being transmitted throughout our galaxy, even as we speak. Coming up.
Transmitting signals into space saying, hey there, here we are, is an absolutely idiotic thing to do.
Dr. Stephen Hawking suggested that they would come here to destroy us.
"290 miles north of San Francisco, is an open field that many scientists believe could hold the key to contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. At the Allen Telescopic Array, radio receivers and giant transmitters are part of a global scientific network called SETI.
I think that the goal of the SETI program, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, is extremely important. We look at our universe and we just have to know, are we alone? Or is there anybody else out there?
Among SETI's favorite cosmic targets are areas called Goldilocks zones.
The Goldilocks zone is a zone around a star where the temperatures are not too hot, not too cold, but just right for liquid water to exist. All life on Earth requires liquid water. So we believe that the best way to search for other planets with life is to search for planets that have liquid water. And just as technology has begun to see planets that may be able to have life, that type of planet appears to be everywhere.
So the million-dollar question is if we can find an otherwise decent planet around a star in its Goldilocks zone, because that's where we have the greatest chance of finding extraterrestrials.
Could there really be an abundance of livable planets in the universe? And might SETI really detect intelligent life on one of them? But how?
There's two senses in which you could detect intelligent extraterrestrial life. One is in just the noise that they generate. If you think about our society, we now have TV, we have cell phones, we have all sorts of technology that radiates out into space and could in principle be detected. The other is we have changes in our atmosphere that we've generated by being on the planet and doing stuff that in principle could be detected.
It is very much like looking for a needle in a haystack because we're using radio astronomy. We're analyzing radio waves in an effort to try and find out whether amongst the millions of signals which we get on a daily, if not hourly basis from space, whether somehow in there is an alien communication.
Could the very existence of SETI, along with NASA's mission to Mars and other planets, be proof of the U.S. government's secret belief in the ancient astronaut theory? And if so, would we be prepared in the event of a real-life close encounter?
UFO activity has been going on for thousands of years, and we have been monitored and watched since the beginning of our civilization.
The U.S. military and even the United Nations has stored away some contingency plans in the event that aliens should show up, you know, either benign or otherwise. They would be remiss in their job if they didn't have such contingency plans.
Are there secret files and covert plans under lock and key? Have there been exercises and other preparation work? If the truth finally comes out, might proof of life on other planets crumble the foundations of government, religion, science, and our society? Or would it reassure us by revealing at last the truth about our origins?
If an American book of secrets existed, then the chapter on ancient astronauts would suggest that we shouldn't look for our origins on planet Earth, but that in fact our origins lie out there.
Might SETI be on the brink of an incredible discovery? Or are they, as some experts warn, setting planet Earth up for a mega disaster?
transmitting signals into space saying, hey there, here we are, is an absolutely idiotic thing to do. I mean, seriously, you don't scream in the jungle. If you were a pig living on an island of pigs, very happily doing all your pigly stuff, would you like for the human neighbors on the island next to you to know that you're there? Don't think so. We humans are newbies on this stage. We don't know who's out there.
If they were hostile and wanted to end the experiment we call humanity here, they could do so, because they would have the technology to do so.
If this universe is made up of the same primordial soup, then you have to assume that not every being in this universe is enlightened and nice. So it's very possible that there's a sect of extraterrestrials that are coming to this planet, and they're doing some very strangely evil things.
Dr. Stephen Hawking suggested that SETI should stop sending out signals or searching for signals, because the moment that extraterrestrials found out that we are here.
In this documentary, you will see miraculous UFO footage that has been authenticated by top UFO.
The documentary featured an extensive summary of the footage, the canisters containing the footage, an expert analysis from the likes of Stanton Friedman. One film expert noted in the documentary that the footage came in an old Soviet canister that had information labeled on it that was consistent with info written directly on the film reel. The numbers on the film's header matched the canisters they came. The header of the film had the crest of the KGB on it, and the term for top secret is shown in the first few seconds of this footage and image to the right. Having real-looking alien footage is one thing, but including the original film reel canisters means you are extremely close to proving 100% authenticity. This is something that has traditionally lacked in other more popular alien videos, such as the widely known Alien Autopsy or the Alien Interview videos. Several KGB documents. In the documentary, several KGB documents are produced to prove the film is authentic, along with credible testimony from a former Soviet KGB operative who claims to know about the event. At first everyone believed that those debris were part of some novelty aircraft manufactured in the United States or England, said Pavel Klimchenkov, a former KGB operative, but having done some measurements material analysis, we came to the conclusion that none of the domestic or foreign manufacturers known to us could have produced this apparatus, at least not in the conditions existing on this planet. Along with Pavel's testimony, authentic KGB top-secret documents were obtained by the filmmakers, allegedly costing them $10,000. The documents described in detail a crash site recovery operation of a disc-shaped object and organic remains. Based on the credible testimony, KGB documents, expert film analysis and the general good feeling one gets when watching this interesting crash site video, it is safe to assume that this film indeed may be authentic. What about the autopsy? This footage will be posted in our second part article along with thoughts and analysis. Actors, training exercises, skepticism. Some have put forth the argument that an American production crew filmed the footage in March 1998. These claims are put forth on websites claiming to know the truth about this footage. To date they have failed to show even one current photo of any of the soldiers in the film, nor any statements from the actors that they were indeed only actors in this film. This should be easy to obtain if the footage was recently filmed. Some have put forth the argument that an American production crew filmed the footage in March 1998. These claims are put forth on websites claiming to know the truth about this footage. To date they have failed to show even one current photo of any of the soldiers in the film, nor any statements from the actors that they were indeed only actors in this film. This should be easy to obtain if the footage was recently filmed. Another theory suggests the film was a training exercise. Yet no one has produced witnesses verifying this claim. One skeptical viewpoint suggests that the object's thickness is far too small to support any would-be alien pilot. The craft's outer edge as seen on the image is only 12 to 36 inches. However, it is not necessarily indicative of the overall thickness of the craft. The image was taken from the only part in the video sequence where the craft's edge is visible, and since the camera never goes behind, there is no way to tell how much depth the craft may have on the other side. Additionally, if you consider the side facing us may actually be the bottom, we can easily see that this craft can easily fit the traditional flying saucer shape as demonstrated by the below images. In this documentary they claim that, since they only were able to acquire 4 canisters of film, more film footage of this incident is available, such as the entire digging, cleanup, and inside the craft investigation. To this date, almost a decade after it went public, no other videos have surfaced. A UFO crash site allegedly filmed by the Russian KGB in March of 1969 in the Sverdlovsk region of Russia. The footage was later obtained by documentary filmmakers who then published the movie, The Secret KGB UFO Files. A film expert noted in the documentary that the film came in an old Soviet film can and the numbers on the film's header match the cans they came in. The header of the film has the crest of the KGB on it and the term for top secret. An autopsy of the alleged pilot of the UFO is seen in the documentary film. Soviet doctors examined the burnt torso of the entity and it is revealed that the 3 doctors died 1 week later, all from cerebral hemorrhages. Death certificates are presented as proof. Several KGB documents are produced to prove the film is authentic. Some have put forth the argument that an American production crew filmed the footage in March 1998. These claims are put forth on websites claiming to know the truth about this footage. To date they have failed to show even one current photo of any of the soldiers in the film nor any statements from the actors that they were indeed only actors in this film. This should be easy to obtain if the footage was recently filmed. Another theory suggests the film was a training exercise. Yet no one has produced witnesses verifying this claim. UFO aliens may have helped build pyramids of Giza, says Cairo University archaeologist. Head of the Cairo University Archaeology Department, Dr. Ayla Shaheen, in December 2010 had told an audience that there might be truth to the theory that aliens helped the ancient Egyptians build the oldest of pyramids, the Pyramids of Giza. On being further questioned by Mr. Marek Nowak, a delegate from Poland, as to whether the pyramid might still contain alien technology or even the UFO with its structure, Dr. Shaheen was vague and replied, "I cannot confirm or deny this, but there is something inside the pyramid that is not of this world." Delegates to the conference on ancient Egyptian architecture were left shocked. However, Dr. Shaheen had refused to comment further or elaborate on his UFO and alien-related statements. Down below is 90's The Secret KGB UFO Files documentary, that deals with the fact that Russian had already discovered the tomb of alien humanoid in Egypt and something is beneath the pyramid. The Secret KGB UFO Files documentary interestingly supporting the head of the Cairo University Archaeology Department, Dr. Ayla Shaheen, claim as well. Actually, ancient Egyptian writings very often talk of beings from the sky opening and bright lights coming down to teach them technology and give them wisdom. Many pictures and symbols resemble UFOs and aliens. Possibly aliens built the Great Pyramid. And these solid long-lasting construction techniques were adopted by the Egyptians. Ancient Egyptian legends tell of Tep-Zepi, or the first time. This is described as an age when sky gods came down to earth and raised the land from mud and water. They supposedly flew through the air in flying boats and brought laws and wisdom to man through a royal line of pharaohs. And of course, this was all thrown out the window when Christianity came along. Keep in mind that the gods were the one and only religion that there was. No other conflicting beliefs? Why? Well, because it was fact, not faith. The modern church would have you believe that it's just a myth. But you have to ask yourself, on the edge of Occam razor, what truly indeed is more likely? There has always been the question. How did the Egyptians feed and care for the 100,000 slaves that it would have taken to build the ancient structures like that of the pyramids in Egypt? 1 minute it is a very backwards country and almost overnight a highly advanced and technological culture sprung into existence. We now have the answer to that very question and evidence that the Egyptians had help, extraterrestrial help at that, thanks to Russia, the KGB, and a top-secret project called Project ISIS. Astrophysicist neurologist and science advisor in Advanced Propulsion System, gained access to the files of Project ISIS. This was a top-secret project brought about by KGB concerning the discovery of the tomb of the visitor in 1961. Up until Sci-Fi purchased this exclusive footage from an agent of the Russian Mafia, it had never been seen outside the top-secret facilities of the KGB. Sci-Fi showed it one time on television, and as it stands today, no evidence of this film or the project is available, except what we have copies of here given to us by a client that had taped the original show. This video is a powerful documentary with actual footage filmed by the KGB and verified by specialists in the field. Authentic film footage. If we can somehow bring attention back on Project ISIS and prove it out, it will change the history of the beginning of the civilization of man. During the Cold War, Nikita Khrushchev was determined to show the world that communism was superior over the democracy. As he realized that it would be too costly to compete with the US in the space race, Khrushchev chose to go the other route. Having over 300,000 agents in the secret police and espionage organizations, he focused most of this resource on alternative science, such as paranormal phenomena, sotrometic weapons, biogenerators and mind-altering machines. 1920s, during the Stalinist regime, a dark room was created where the KGB conducted psychotronic weapons research on prisoners sentenced to die and political dissidents. After 1936, these files were transferred to the secret archives of the KGB, continuing on with their paranormal research. Khrushchev achieved great success with his biogenerators and machines to alter human minds, which worried, naturally, the United States, knowing that the Soviet Union was there to conquer and overthrow. Russia, being that its borders surrounded the largest landmass of the world, had the largest amount of UFO sightings. If they could capture one of these flying objects and reverse engineer it, they could have the greatest advanced aeronautical designs. They got lucky in January 1986 when a spacecraft crashed in Dalgorsk but remained intact. The craft was back-engineered and the process was quite successful. But to achieve the most superior advancement in global domination, they went in search for something that was only a rumor or legend. The Chamber of Knowledge in Egypt. If the legends were true, storehouse of knowledge left behind by ancient visitors from outer space was concealed in the Great Pyramid. A team of archaeologists were composed of Egyptologists from the Russian Soviet Academy of Science, was sent to Egypt. The fearing that the CIA would learn of this expedition, the Kremlin operated with complete secrecy. By the late 1950s, Egypt accounted for 43% of all the Soviet aid for Third World nations. When they started the ISIS project, the Soviet military personnel in Egypt was estimated over 20,000. The heavy military presence was used to disguise the efforts of the mission scientists headquartered in Cairo. They would operate under the guise of Arab peasants or Russian officers. To speed things up, in 1959 the KGB recruited professional informationalists to wiretap Egyptian officials. This paid off. In July 24, 1961, a conversation was recorded that would then change myth into reality. The official had been given a call that two Bedouin had stumbled upon the tomb of the visitor. The Bedouin were in the hospital and kept repeating, "The visitor God." At this moment in time, Project ISIS became top priority and all efforts were made to immediately follow up by having the Bedouin show them where they had found this tomb. SCIFI was able to purchase several documents and film footage as to the KGB documentations of their findings. Taken out of Egypt and brought to the secret facility of the KGB was this memo to high-ranking KGB official. My agents had secured the notes of one of the scientists working on the tomb of the visitor findings. Another was the inventory of contents taken from the tomb as follows. Location of finding. Undisclosed. 15 crates of relics, 1 partially mummified body, 1 stone sarcophagus, 8 hieroglyphic samples. Old report from a project scientist that was one of the first to enter the tomb. During the inspection of the wall segment, we noted that a strange magnet-repulsive force seemed to be emanating from the rock. We were unable to find any scientific explanation. Cryptologist report. Partial decoded message on tomb wall indicating a prophecy of the return of the winged gods. The Kremlin took the cryptologist report very seriously. KGB was ordered to determine target locations: planets, stars, galaxies. They had to duplicate the stars as they would have been over Giza thousands of years ago. They finally found it, in the stars and constellation of Orion during the year 10,500 BC. Although it was possible that the builders could have been working off plans of a time before the pyramids was constructed, this was proven not to be the case. Metal and synthetic materials of tomb were determined to be of unknown origin, and the tomb was carbon dated, giving it a dating of 10,500 BC, meaning the pyramid had to have been made at 10,500 BC. Cans of film were purchased by SEIFI through the Russian mafia agent, which originally came from the maximum security archives of the KGB. These cans contain film of KGB filming the process of the tomb and sarcophagus being opened. Sci-Fi had this film analyzed before purchasing by experts in this field. Finding no evidence of fraud, SEIFI purchased cans of film. The documentary is in black and white, showing soldiers entering the tomb without gas masks. As they opened the sarcophagus, you can see toxic fumes escaping and the reaction of the soldiers as they were being affected. It also shows the mummy contained inside. The film shows the soldiers leaving the tomb fast, and then a chemical warfare specialist team comes in with protective clothing. There is talk from one that was there in the tomb, that the energy inside, during the first days of exploration, was very high. They also had a team of psychics go in and do some special readings of the tomb. It later goes on to show the KGB and Bedouin loading trucks with crates to be shipped back to Russia. According to KGB documents, researchers began to wonder if the pyramid was designed for one particular purpose. They thought it was possibly a machine, being that it was designed like a three-dimensional triangular depiction of a hemisphere. Their thoughts were there must have been a reason why it was designed for resonating with the planet. Their thoughts went to a prism, and that the pyramids have powers to alter the cosmic rays, that the pyramids are huge prisms capable of concentrating energy, capturing light from the stars, which would initiate a process which would turn the pyramid into an interstellar transmitter. The three pyramids and SPHNIX could be integral parts of an immense machine designed by alien engineers linked by a master control mechanism inside the Great Pyramids. They noted that the passageway goes to main chamber, and above the sarcophagus was a tunnel star shaft. They reasoned that when a specific star alignment occurs, a streak of energy goes down the shaft. Scientists speculated that the radiant energy hitting the sarcophagus could initiate something similar to a cold fusion reaction. The prism structure of the pyramid would then magnify and transfer to the corresponding pyramids. A united beam of energy could erupt, creating a cosmic beacon used by alien starship for future navigation. According to ancient legends all around the world, they all have the same thing in common. The visitors were like men but more like gods. They were giants. They traveled among the stars. They brought us the knowledge. Legends of the first emperors of China were called the Sons of Heaven and made the first pyramids of China. Mexico and Yucatan have similar legends. Starwalkers can be found throughout Egyptian texts and American folklore. The visitors are described as the giants, man/gods, giants or titans. And it seems all cultures may be traced to a single parent civilization. Could it be E.T.? Later on in the documentary, it shows them working on the mummy, attempting to give it a face and identity. A computer projection of the mummy was made as it laid in the sarcophagus. Experts that were there to observe the fluorescent reconstruction of the face described to Sci-Fi that if they had not been there themselves, they would not have believed what the face revealed after reconstruction. When skull and face was completed, it showed a humanoid type: large cranium, large eyes, small chin, small teeth, but not Earth humanoid, but some being that had to have been extraterrestrial. Later, using underground radar technology, the KBG found a passageway under the tomb of the visitor. Directly below was a large chamber. They believed they found the chamber of knowledge, but was afraid to open the tomb, thinking it could be a Trojan horse, capable of blowing up the entire planet. They decided to seal the tomb, wipe away the location of the tomb, and close the project. It seemed, however, that all were affected by the discovery. Some had personality changes. Some disappeared entirely, others committed suicide, and others no longer could support their old religious beliefs. The first official report of sightings, that we are aware of, was by King Tutankhamun about 3,400 years ago. Sightings continued through the ages. Sightings seemed to pick up with man mastered the skies. But when we conquered the inner workings of the atom, the aliens of Orion stepped up their observation with an explosion of UFO sightings that continue up to the present. UFO abduction reports began to sweep around the world in the early 60s. A pattern was developing, with nearly all abductees reporting physical examinations, insertion of objects and artificial inseminations. Many women abductees believed they were being impregnated to give birth to alien hybrids. In the last decade, reports such as these have risen dramatically. It may be highly likely that the genetic colonization program that started back in the ancient times has resumed. The question was asked, could they be cloning themselves by implanting their alien genes into human DNA? Are humans being transformed into an alien species through genetic engineering? The ancient Egyptians have always said that our DNA came from the heavens and that someday they would return. Did the KGB discover the truth in the Chamber of Knowledge about the true agenda of the Yet? And what was discovered on the wall of the tomb of the visitor prophesies that they would return. But when? Secrets cannot be contained. Not even KGB secrets. A group of scientists, computer programs, doctors, etc., shortly after the discovery of the tomb of the visitor, came together to discuss the possibilities of this discovery. They fully believed that the visitor was none other than Osiris, the alien king. Thus they gave themselves the name, the Followers, based off the followers of Horus in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. According to Egyptian beliefs, a family of gods came from the stars to Egypt. They were the ones that gave the people of Egypt the knowledge and wisdom. Later they left Earth back to their star homes, except for Osiris. He stayed and taught the followers. It was their duty to protect and keep the ancient knowledge he gave them until his return. The Egyptians were astronomers and fully understood that the stars were the map to the great god Osiris and the afterlife. Followers would secretly come together in their homes to discuss the possibility of the return of Osiris. They believed that the second coming of Osiris would herald a new age for mankind. They believed that when the tomb was discovered and the seal was broken, a signal was transmitted to the visitors. They calculated and estimated the time it would take for the electromagnetic signal to reach the constellation of Orion. They figured that they could return no earlier than April 23, 1985. With that time frame in mind, the group left Russia and took off to Egypt, never to return. The only remains left behind of their meeting with the visitors was a newspaper clippage found in the KGB archives of a group of tourists disappearing in the middle of the night in Egypt, 1985. And one home movie project with film. This film showed the group in front of the pyramid at night. It shows a light appearing in the sky, the group dropping to their knees in prayer, the light becoming brighter and then nothingness. A daughter of parents that were part of this group was shown the home video by the SCIFI team, of which she recognized her parents and burst into tears.
Did anyone happen to see a documentary on sci-fi called Secret KGB UFO Files? I happened to catch this yesterday, and while I'm leaning to the side of skepticism, I have to admit that it was intriguing. Basically, the story goes, in the early 60s the KGB discovered a tomb at the Geyser Plateau containing an Eva. Luckily there was film footage, haha. The grainy film contained footage of archaeologists dressed in KGB gear opening the tomb of what was thought to be an ancient Egyptian king. When they do, toxic smoke overcomes one of them and the other two run out. It is later learned that the body isn't human. The footage looked as if it had been produced to look old. Also included were shots of psychics levitating in the tomb. One thing that caught my attention is the archaeologist that was supposed to have been claimed by the toxic smoke was later helping move crates of evidence down some stairs. Despite the curious film footage, the documentary was very interesting and had me glued from the jump. 5 decades. American agencies have stockpiled information on UFOs. So did their counterparts behind the Iron Curtain. Soldiers, scientists and spies all paint a disturbing picture of the KGB's secret campaign. Is this the stunning proof that the Soviets recovered something not from this earth? When U.S. researchers began looking into just how much the Soviet government knew about UFOs and extraterrestrial visitation, they were not surprised to learn that the Russians took the subject very seriously. What they didn't expect was evidence of ancient alien visitation, paranormal properties associated with related artifacts, and most shocking of all, of a mass abduction in 1985, among the piles of materials obtained from former Soviet spies. Some extremely puzzling and disturbing documents and film footage surfaced confirming rumors, which had been circulating for decades. In the late 1950s and 60s, the Russians became very interested in a number of unusual and newly discovered archaeological sites in Egypt by interpreting ancient symbols. One of those sites was believed to contain the remains of a life form not from Earth. Startling top-secret film footage, never before seen outside the Kremlin, confirms the Soviet mission to recover and analyze these remains. Join host Roger Moore in an exclusive investigation into one of the most compelling events of our time.